A woman has been remanded for attempting to sever her boyfriend's manhood. Magistrate Court in Ado-Ekiti has ordered the remand of 20-year-old Joy Ikoja for attempting to cut off her boyfriend's manhood. The suspect was arraigned by the Ekiti State Police Command for allegedly tearing the scrotal of one Ibrahim Usman during a violent altercation in the Irona area. Prosecuting Officer Inspector Adeboye Adeshegun told the court the incident occurred around 8 p.m. on April 12th. Ikoja reportedly attacked Usman and inflicted grievous harm on his balls. Charges also include conduct likely to cause a breach of public peace as outlined under Section 186, Section 255, 256 subsection A and 181 subsection D of Ekiti State criminal laws. Defense counsel Barrister David Ogbede applied for bail, insisting that his client remains innocent until proven guilty and poses no threat risk. He pleaded with the court to consider her age and the circumstances surrounding the incident while deciding on her bail status pending trial. Prosecutor objected, raising concerns over the defendant's credibility. He claimed her current name differs from an earlier case struck out by the same court. This discrepancy, he said, raises fears that the accused could jump bail if granted temporary freedom before the next hearing date. Presiding Magistrate Olatomiwa Daramola denied bail and ordered her remand at the Ado-Ekiti Correctional Facility. He adjourned the case till April 22nd for continuation of proceedings. Police are expected to present more evidence while the defendant remains in custody as the legal process continues. This is another case of domestic abuse. You know, people in relationships having this deep-seated conflict where they are able to resolve it without, succumbing, as it were, to violence. What are your thoughts on this report?
This issue of, I feel like nowadays marriages are much more toxic. You have issues where maybe your partner and and yourself had an argument, and it just spirals into physical harm that leads to someone cutting off a husband's manhood. It's quite scary.
He's actually a boyfriend, but it beats the question: where was his scrotal sack that it was close to her hand to try to cut it off with a knife?
We can begin to play all of that drama, right? What even happened? How did it get to that extent? I'm sure something must have happened. Things like they don't just happen, in a vacuum or in a limbo. But regardless, still, let's not make this. It's becoming frequent. I think I've been on this show and we have talked about an issue like this before, but it's not. It shouldn't be. If you have issues, you can talk about it. The most that should happen is you raise voices and you try to settle. But when you try to commit such a crime, then you have to face the law, because there's no other way around it. What could have happened if you successfully cut it off? It was close to. People should be careful. Get yourself checked. If you have serious anger issues, always make sure
I was going to get there. Do you think people actually realize, the harm this deep-seated anger can do to them until it happens? Do you think it stems more from a place of mental health than of a place of, economic and societal frustration, as it were, given that the cost of living in Nigeria is pretty high? Some people are out of work, some people are not getting paid their revenue, the minimum wage is barely enough. Do you think it stems from, basically existing and the crisis we are with, inflation just now, or it just stems from a mental situation where people have become so angry and, they can't figure out a way to get around it?
You're absolutely right. There is tension in the country. When I say tension, I mean there's hardship. There's a lot to think about. There's a lot to do. As an adult, it's not easy. If you have kids, you have to feed them. If you are living on minimum wage, that's another challenge. We talked about power last time. You have to pay power bills. how much is a bag of rice? So many things to think about. Then when your relationship is now having issues, it just gives room for you to just explode. That's why most times when these things happen, I emphasize the importance of communication, frequent communication with your partner. And people should not just think marriage is an abstract thing. When I talk about marriage in some cases, most cases, I tell people it's a partnership. Just see it as a way that, I mean, if you are in a partner, I mean, if you are in your office, for example, or in a partnership, I mean, in your office, you're in partnership with other people and your boss, in an organization. If you have an argument, would you go as far as, cutting off his balls? You get, let's even forget the abstract part of marriage, which is love and all of that. I mean, just be practical. Try to think about these things much more, critically. Okay, if I do this, what's going to happen?
Right.
If you have issues, you talk about it now. Don't keep it all pent up in yourself. I mean, we are human. Things go out of control when you don't talk about things. But when you talk about these things, it might not be good things. It might be hard to talk about, but it lets your mind, it lets your heart to, be free. It lets your mental space to be a bit clear than, just having it all boxed in.
Right. Thank you so much. But do you think that, you talked about love just now. Do you think that people that go this far, in whatever their anger or grievances are, as regards going as far as wanting to completely cut off, the penile area of a man, completely removing all of that, do you think there was anything that as regards to love at all in whatever relationship it was that we're having?
The thing about relationship is, well, there might have been love, but the thing is, love is not enough in relationships.
Right.
It is not enough. There has to be respect. These are different things entirely.
Right.
Love is not enough to sustain. Yeah, there has to be respect. There has to be care. There has to be communication. Again, partnership. It's not just, I mean, when you build a marriage or a relationship on just one of these things, it's going to lack when tough times come. Right. So you have to ensure. That's why communication is important. That way you can get to understand what it works differently for people. For some people, maybe love is just enough. I mean, some might even tell you money is also important, and it's important because, like we have both agreed, there's hardship in the town. Imagine there is no money to feed.
Right.
And the other tensions from all the other corners. So it's more than just the concept of love. There has to be more respect, care, emotional intelligence, critical thinking. Just it's like I said, it's different for people, but you can't just base it on just one or two of these things.
Right. Thank you so much for your insight on